Today, I am joined by the lovely Irene Diamond, who I came across her work almost 12 years ago, and I signed up to her email list wanting advice and mentorship. And I still believe I have her emails coming into my inbox. And it's funny, we crossed paths in a mutual group, and now I get to have you on the podcast. So let me just formally introduce you to everyone, and then I will hand it over to you. Irene Diamond is a pain reliever and mover improver who helps both people and businesses get out of pain and moving. In 1995, she founded San Francisco, California's very first wellness center, Diamond Pain Relief and Wellness. It continues today, enjoying referrals from other healthcare providers across the country. Irene provides clinical results for a select few clients per month, providing long-lasting welcomed relief for clients who've been told you need to live with it. I think we hear that too often, don't we? She's the creator of continuing education courses for therapists and clinic owners on effective approaches and strategy for business excellence and clinical competencies to provide fast, effective, life-changing results for their clients and patients. Her rehabilitation approach, active myofascial therapy, the Diamond method, and the spa version called Diamond Active Massage is offered around the world by a select group of hand-picked therapists and organizations with the goal of activating people and the planet. Her latest book, Design Your Dream Practice, is fast becoming the Bible for mental health, massage, physical therapy, chiropractic, and other health and wellness clinics to transition to a precise private practice that attracts and serves affluent, appreciative clients. I love what you do, and it's not just practitioners that you work with. So we're probably going to explore both of these avenues and just trust the conversation evolves how it will. But can you just give us a little bit more insight into all of that?
A little insight into all of that. Yeah, it's a mouthful. So I've been in practice for 30 years. It's crazy. And it started by somewhat of an accident. And again, we'll kind of go through a lot of different aspects of my practice, my being, but it all started with a broken neck at the age of 15. I was doing acrobatics. I was standing on a guy's shoulders doing flips and throws and balancing and things like that. I was a flyer and my timing was off, and I was supposed to do a forward somersault, land in his arms, and instead I landed on my head on the mats.
What kind of injuries did you sustain from that?
So it was a compression fracture of my neck, cervical vertebra C5 and 6. And luckily, the person whose shoulders I was standing on was an anesthesiologist. So I was in high school, so it was adults and kids. And I was doing this. I grew up in Honolulu, so I was at the beach. I was in my bathing suit. It was right before this competition. So we were practicing. I was on mats though, which was great because usually we just practiced on the grass on a beach towel. So when I fell, luckily he suspected a neck injury and knew not to move me. His wife, who was a nurse, was there as well. And, you know, it scares me to think what would have happened had there not been healthcare providers there, because of course, normally somebody falls and somebody else will say, hey, let's sit them up and move them over there or whatever. And that would have been the worst thing because it could have severed my spinal cord. Instead, it was a compression on my spinal cord, which resulted in me still being completely paralyzed and in the hospital for about, I think it was 64 days to be exact.
Wow. So what was your rehab journey like? And I know that you've actually got quite a few other experiences on top of this, but yeah, it was the start of your pathway. So how did it lead you down rehab?
Yeah,
and what are you doing?
exactly. So at that point, again, this is a long time ago, physical therapy, rehab therapy was different. I mean, even in the ambulance, they didn't, now someone gets injured, they put you on a back brace and support your neck, and they just suspect neck injuries. Well, at that time, I was, the ambulance driver literally held my head in place as we drove to the hospital. So even emergency care was different. They got me there. They did some x-rays. They gave my parents a choice. Well, basically they called my mom and said, you might want to come down. Your daughter's taken a little fall. She's thinking a broken arm or a broken leg. No, instead it's the thing that they warn you about. Don't do that. You'll break your neck. So they gave my parents a choice. I was in ICU, so I was totally, out of it at the time. And they said, well, we can do surgery, which is risky, or what we can do is try traction. And they put me in a halo. So they chose the least invasive. They put me in a halo where I've got 2 screws into my head in the front, 2 screws in my head in the back, pulling my head this way with 50 pounds of pressure, 50 pounds of weight, and then a belt around my waist to counter pull with 75 pounds. And so they basically said, let's just give it time and hopefully the bones will heal and the compression will come off of your spine, off of your spinal cord, and you'll regain your movement. Well, clearly I've regained my movement. But at the time, after 2 months of laying flat on my back, staring up at the ceiling, they sat me up for the very first time after that period, and the bones, though, had not healed, so they slipped exactly to how they were 2 months prior. So I ended up having to do surgery anyway, which was such a bummer. But you live with it, right? And I guess I've always had just a very upbeat, optimistic attitude. Just naturally, that's my inclination. And I was also young and probably pretty naive and just thought, of course it was going to all work out. Of course I was going to get my movement back. In my mind, there was never a doubt. I was laying in my hospital bed. I had a mobile hanging, the thing that hangs and moves, and it was hang gliders. And I would look at that and I'd think, as soon as I get out, I'm going to go hang gliding. So I just always suspected that things would work out, and luckily they did. They gave me 1 day of PT, and they basically said, well, you're young, you're strong, you'll be able to regain your movement. See you later, goodbye. Well, I was young and I was strong, but I was in a brace. Every muscle had atrophied basically because I had not moved for 2 months. So I had to regain everything, all my function on my own.
And how did you go about doing that?
Yeah, good question. So luckily my dad is a neurobiologist at the University of Hawaii. He had a ton of books that I went and borrowed, read through, tried to read through. My mom was a child clinical psychologist. So I had the physiological and the psychological support. And I had been very active. So I basically just sort of tested and challenged and just went with my instinct, went with my intuition of what my body needed. And the thing is, I was in chronic pain. And the injury happened during the summer. And so once we got back into school, I'd be sitting in class and just, chronic pain. And I was a kid, I didn't know what it was even called. And my mom had the brilliant idea of getting a massage therapist to come to our house and give me a massage. Well, I'd never had a massage. I was only 15 years old. And I said, to the therapist, I actually asked the therapist if I could direct him. And he was open to it. And I said, can you just push here? And then I would move my head in a certain way because just instinctively, that's what I felt I needed to get the relief. And the cool thing is that it worked. It started to get me the relief. He was impressed and he started using it with his clients, the same concept of pushing and having them move. And he, I think I only saw him 2 or 3 times. He came back and he said, wow, that was amazing. What I'm doing with you is really helping these other clients. Like, well, that's cool. So I put that sort of in, some little corner of my brain and forgot about it and went about my day and, got through high school and decided that I was going to get my degree in rehab therapy. And I, went to college, got my degree in rehabilitation and recreational therapy with a focus on dance movement therapy. So it was sort of a hybrid degree that I created myself through the liberal studies program, which was nice because then I could decide what I wanted to do, what courses I needed to take, and had my advisor say, yeah, that sounds like a good plan. So it was mostly movement and dance focus, since that was my focus. And the funny thing is, people would say, well, you know, what are you going to do with your degree? Are you going to be a PE teacher? Very condescending, like, oh, what's a PE teacher? And at the time, this is a long time ago, the Love Boat was on TV. I don't know if anybody remembers that, but the Love Boat was on. And so I had never been on a cruise, but just to be sort of snarky and shut them up, I said, well, I'm not going to be a PE teacher. I'm going to be the cruise director on the Love Boat, like Julie. And what could they say to that, right? Like, oh, okay. So that was just my pat answer. It just came out. I had never been on a cruise before, but right before graduation, my roommate came back from a cruise with her mom and said, Irene, we need to get a job on a cruise ship. Well, okay. Well, again, this is before Google, so I couldn't just look stuff up. Get a job on a cruise ship? How do we do that? So we went to the library and got the books on the addresses of the cruise lines and what the names of the cruise lines were, and literally, you know, wrote out our resumes, mailed them off in the mail. Now, at the time, cruise lines were based out of San Francisco, Miami, and LA. I didn't know any of the positions on the cruise ship. Like, I just applied for sports director and cruise director and hostess and all the fun things. And off our resumes went. Well, since I was in Hawaii, there was a cruise line called American Hawaii Cruises, and they sailed the Hawaiian Islands every week, a 7-day cruise. I got an interview for American Hawaii Cruises on Wednesday. I was sailing on Saturday. It was just like, boom. My poor roommate, Jane, who told me to get to do this, she didn't get a job so quick. Later, she came on, which was good. But off I was. I hired as a health and fitness or fitness and sports director. I was on a ship. I was teaching aerobic classes. I was teaching shuffleboard. I was teaching ping pong and scuba diving and all the fun stuff. I was pouring champagne at the cocktail parties, and we just had a ball. It was great. But back then, fitness was not what it is now on cruise ships. So literally it was one aerobic class and a walk on deck and things like that as their fitness program. Now, the ship I was on actually had a fitness facility, but most cruise lines didn't at the time. Most cruise lines, literally, it was like a little cabin that maybe they moved the bed out and they put an exercise machine in or something like that. So I really knew, first of all, I knew this was not going to be my lifetime career, being on a ship forever. But I loved cruising and traveling. I had grown up traveling with my family. And I wanted to put together fitness programs on cruise ships going around the world. So I moved to San Francisco, started a travel company. And again, no Google, no internet. How did I do it? I went to the library and got books on how to start a business. And that's what you did back then. I actually went and took a college class just as a drop in on tour management. So I understood how to run tours and group tours and things like that. And my travel business took off. Well, the problem was I didn't have any money, right? There wasn't crowdfunding or anything like that. So I had to have a way to make money. So a friend said, why don't you go to massage school? Because I was already teaching aerobics, which was great, but how many aerobic classes can you teach in a day? So he said, since you're, unofficially, if somebody got hurt, I would just rub them, right? I would kind of just do what I just thought to do and they'd feel better. So he says, why don't you learn what to do, how to really do it? And it was the best advice because I went to the school that had the fewest hours. So I could just get in and get out and say I was a therapist. I got my permit and I was making at the time, $45 an hour. But all I needed to do was do 1 or 2 appointments a day. And then I'd have the whole rest of the day to focus on my travel business. So I never really thought I'd be a clinician. That was just a means to an end. but it started taking off. And I'll say I'm very good at what I do. I get amazing clinical results. And so people told people, and my practice started getting busier. And then I'd go off on cruises and they'd say, wait a minute, where are you going? You can't leave. And so then I had to have therapists with my clients while I, so that's how that practice started. So it was kind of fun because I was traveling and doing these cruises all around, bringing therapists with me, bringing in yoga instructors and massage instructors and people to give presentations while we were out on the Mexican Riviera or, the Panama Canal. It was fun. I got to travel all over the world.
Yeah, right. So this is probably taking us more down the route of like the business side of things. So you started as a massage therapist, and can you tell us where you're at now with what you're doing and how your practice has evolved, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah. So again, my degree was in rehab therapy. I thought I wanted to work with children, mostly in movement therapy. So I have that background, and then I supplemented it with massage. And I was a certified personal fitness trainer and aerobic instructor. And, I have my certification from American College of Sports Medicine. And, so I have that foundational background. And then of course, what I studied on my own. And then what I developed, the Diamond method of active myofascial therapy, again, came about because I knew it worked for me. And then I needed a way to get fast results with clients so I could go out on a cruise. So it just sort of evolved over, a function of time limitations, really. How do I literally get them the most bang for their buck? Get them in, get them out, and get them on their way. And then of course, when I was gone, I had to have other therapists seeing these clients. So I was renting space at the beginning out of a health club. And then I was renting space in a chiropractor's office. And then I decided I needed my own space. I wanted to have more autonomy, and I wanted also to have a wellness center. And so it was a concept at the time in 1995. Wellness, that word was not even a word, really. People it wasn't so common. And so when I started Diamond Wellness Center, people didn't know what that was. So I had to throw the word massage and wellness because people knew what massage was. So the name Diamond Massage and Wellness was our name at the beginning. Now it's Diamond Pain Relief and Wellness. And we're in a three treatment rooms and a little exercise room in San Francisco. We have multi-practitioners, so a variety of practitioners. We see a variety of patients and clients, but the focus is orthopedic pain and injuries, pre-post surgery, migraine, chronic fatigue, and fibromyalgia. That's our specialty.
So I'm wondering how you stepped out of being the practitioner who does it all, growing the team, some of the issues that you see for practitioners as well, and what you're doing now, because you're working with a lot of practitioners.
Yes. Well, when somebody's successful, other people want to know how and why. So the therapists that would come and work at our clinic, they'd say, well, I remember very distinctly this one woman, she said, what are you doing for marketing? And I remember thinking, what am I doing for marketing? Everything I do is marketing. Like everything from what we wear to what we say to how we answer the phone. Because I realized, she was thinking more like advertising. And there's a lot of misinformation of what works to be successful. There's a lot of misinformation and then just misunderstanding. So I think what happened was that a lot of practitioners were coming to me saying, how do you do it? How are you so successful? How are you getting clients? How are you charging what you're charging? Because my fees started to go up. Without bragging, I'm probably the most expensive practitioner in San Francisco across the board. So, you even comparing to like medical doctors, I'm not a doctor, But what I do is I charge based on the results people get, not on my time, not on the hour. So even that is a different paradigm shift. So practitioners want to know how I'm doing it. And so I started coaching them, and, little by little, I started developing that aspect of my empire is my business coaching and consulting. And now I consult for clinics all over the world. And, you jumped into my world as a clinician looking for business support. And I have different concepts that people don't, they don't do. It's just a different paradigm. So for example, now our practice is what I call a precise private practice.
What does that mean?
And that's the opposite of what most practices are, the opposite of what I was when I first started. Open to the public compared to precise private practice. Open to the public literally is, come on in, I'll take anybody and everybody. Do you want an appointment? Great, let's get you in. And it's based on volume, right? Getting booked solid. Well, I realized, okay, that's great. That's, volume is a way to make a lot of money and get a lot of impact with clients, touching a lot of people, literally and figuratively. But my preference started to evolve towards being more precise in who I work with. Again, after years and years, I realized there's some people I love working with, some people not so much. So why waste my time working with the not so much people? How about work with people who I really do my best work with, who I get excited to see on my calendar and go, oh, good, I get to see them today, right? So I figured out there is a way to literally, we probably referred out 3/4 of our client load. I remember very distinctly, we had these big file cabinets in our reception area. Again, we were paper, old school, we still are paper, but we went from like 3 big file cabinets down to 1. Why? Because we got rid of all those people. They weren't our dream clients. So we started focusing on dream clients, providing the precise results for the precise clients in the precise therapy methods and approaches that we wanted to do, and charge for results, not for time. Now, some of our services are still time-based, but it's a different paradigm shift. And so now, because we're doing that, people want to know how to do that as well. So that's what I'm coaching other clinics to do. It doesn't work for every practice. Big hospitals and clinics that need to be open to the public, obviously there's a reason they're open to the public. But for smaller practices and solo practitioners, precise is totally the way to go. Like, all the stress of running a private practice goes out the window. You don't have to worry about bad reviews online. You don't have to worry about not knowing, does the client, did they like you? Like, that's all gone. It's not even an issue anymore, because you only work with people who you're good to work with.
It definitely is a mindset shift, isn't it? Like, I find quite a few practitioners have this block because we're used to, and I used to see sometimes 60 or 70 clients a week. And now I only work with 10 to 15 across a whole year. And, you and I know that, oh my gosh, it's so cool working in this way, but it's getting that transition. And especially if, I guess, you have a team, like the business owner might want that, but is the team on board? Like, can they shift their mindset? So how do you work through those blocks?
Well, when you say team, do you mean other practitioners, or do you mean front desk?
People talking about implementing this in private clinics, or are you just working with one clinician, not with a team of clinicians?
No, we have a team. We have a team of clinicians, and other practices that are doing it also have other providers. Well, there's certainly, it's a paradigm shift. It's a different frame of mind to have. Not everybody gets it, and not everybody wants it. So of course there has to be buy-in from the providers. And once they start working in a more precise manner, they wonder why they didn't do it sooner. Yeah. Because it really is it's so graceful and it's fun. It takes all the stress out of it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Not trying to fill your books full and just knowing you're after just a few key clients.
Mm-hmm. So and you know what happens also, pardon me, when you have a specialty, it it's so beneficial for you and for your patients, because, you know, for my people that I specialize in migraines and neck pain, if I'm going to do some research, that's all I research clinically, right? I don't need to stay up to date on treatment for ankles or the latest procedure for diabetes. That's not my thing. I don't need to study that. So I'm definitely focused on the people I work with, the conditions, the symptoms, et cetera. I can give it all my attention. So I'm that much better because I'm not so general and distracted.
Yeah, people often worry about niching down too much and excluding all the other people out there. It's like, it's okay, someone else will be able to serve them.
Absolutely.
I'm curious with, from my perspective, like I'm really big on the mind-body connection, emotions and physical, and doing the practical and also doing the deeper inner work as well. What is your approach? Because you work with a select number of people, is it purely your technique, or are there other things that you bring to your treatment with your clients? Like, what are the conversations that you have with them? What's your take on emotions manifesting in the physical body?
Well, I have a lot of take on it. So the method, the Diamond method, it is a biopsychosocial approach. You know, we know the brain is in control of everything. I don't think I would say emotions per se, more than I'd rather couch it in psychological terms. But we know, of course, you know, the emotions are a part of it. Do I think that emotions are stored in the body, as people say, you know, air quotes, stored in the body? No. Do I think physical pain can elicit emotional releases, or you know, physical work can result in an emotional experience? Yes, but I don't think it's stored per se. You know, when I work with a client, we don't really focus on that, or even talk about it. If it comes up, it's addressed, but it's, in my practice anyway, it's not a piece. I look at people as a whole. So if they come in for a neck, it's, yes, the pain might be in your neck. And so, yes, I look at everything globally, but I don't think, for example, it's there because of some trauma you might have had, you know, when you were 3 years old. Emotional trauma. It may be a physical thing.
Yes. Yeah. So do you focus purely on the physical aspect, but looking at the body as a whole? That's your approach?
The physical and psychological.
Yeah. I'm curious about the psychological. Can you dive into that a little bit more?
Ask me a question. Ask me a question. You know, psychological, because we know pain or limited movements, or, I mean, it's so intertwined. Right? People often, again, in my experience, because I work with pain patients, chronic pain, persistent pain, that defines people. It's formed people. It should not limit them, although it can and does. So we work with the psychological aspects of what's possible as opposed to what's impossible. We focus on the possibility. I'm an optimistic person. Somebody comes in and they say, I can't. I'm like, why can't you? What's holding you back? Oh, I don't know. Well, let's see what you can do. You know, so we're always sort of reframing it and what's possible, what can you do? Focusing on the ability, not the disability, right? The ability, not the limitations. And that is huge. Like literally, I got an email from a woman who I worked with yesterday for the first time. And oh, my email's not coming up. But I was going to just read it to you, where she said, you know, I said, well, how are you doing? And she said, oh, here she goes. She goes, thank you for our work together yesterday. I feel empowered. Well, how is that? Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, just after one
right?
session.
After one session, she feels empowered. Well, why does she feel empowered? Is that physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually? I don't know. I'm just happy that she came back with
Yes.
that.
And yeah, the language that we use and the beliefs that we have are huge. So I think it's great having practitioners pull people up and give them, another way of thinking alongside the physical therapy aspect as well.
Mhm.
Can I ask, how long do you generally find you work with your clients?
Do you mean per session or over time?
Over time?
It really just depends. There's no general.
Mm.
I had a woman I worked with yesterday for our second visit, and this is over a video. She lives 500 miles away. I did she chronic migraines. I did an evaluation with her and gave her a few, we call them actions, which are the therapeutic movements in the Diamond method. So I assessed her over video. I gave her a few actions to do 12 days ago. Then I met with her yesterday over a video to check in. She hasn't had a migraine or headache or even the cloud at all in the last 12 days.
Mm.
And she traveled for work, and she said normally sitting on the airplane and looking down and all the stress of all that, she would have at least had one or two. So I said, I think this is all we need to do is give you a few more actions to do, and then we'll check in maybe in a month. So that was 2 visits, maybe 3.
And
And
so do you work with people physically still, like in person, or is it all online?
it's half and half. I have a lot of people who see me virtually. Even before COVID came, I was doing some video visits over Skype because people would say, my cousin needs to see you and she doesn't live in San Francisco. So I've been doing video visits. I like both. I like putting my hands on people because I can obviously feel things. But a lot of the Diamond method is movement based and awareness. So we don't need to have the touch. But there's
Mm.
nothing like getting in and just getting on that spot and relieving it manually, and them feeling that, which again empowers them because now they have they can also do it to themselves, so they have those tools.
Mm. So,
Mhm.
all right, we're straddling two, like practitioners and non-practitioners. If we, just for the non-practitioner or clinician type people, what is something that you would like to share with them to get them thinking a little bit more about how they can improve the pain or discomfort in their physical body? Like you talked about empowerment as well. So what's the message that you would like to leave for the non-clinician type people?
Yeah, good question. um so again, psychologically, they may have been told you have to live with it, or people put horrible thoughts in people's, my husband, who I met actually because he has a bad back. And so first time I saw him at a party, he was rubbing his back and I was like, oh, that's a good pickup line. So we chatted. Now we're married 20 years later, but 22 years later. But he was told, back then, oh, you've got a back like an 80-year-old. Well, he wasn't even close to 80-year-old. So, right. So in his mind, as a non-clinician, what does that do for people? Oh, if I have a back like an 80-year-old, I have to be really careful. I have to not do this. I can't do those things anymore. So people come to me, and if you're listening to this, and if you are a person who has persistent pain, even the name of persistent pain and chronic pain has been changed. Why? Because chronic means like it's not going away. Persistent means, yeah, it's annoying, but it certainly can go away. So that's the message, is saying, let's look at what's possible. Let's look, even if it's a baby step, start there. This gal the other day, I was on the phone with her and I said, do you think you can get out and do a walk? And she said, oh, I know I need to do exercises. I said, no, 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 hang on. A walk, 5-minute walk. Put your tennies on, go for a walk around the block. So, people start thinking all or nothing. Start baby steps, get moving, feel empowered, have control of your body, start to develop strength, start to get the joints lubricated again. and celebrate the wins, celebrate the tiny accomplishments. Don't think, well, I didn't go for 30 minutes. That's a failure. If you got out for 5, that's good. If you, did some stretching, that's good. So that's the message I would say is really just believe what's possible. Believe your body is strong. Even if you're not able to do everything you want to do, there's a lot you can do and focus on what's possible.
Yeah, that's good. I love it. The baby steps, celebrate, don't set too high expectations, prove it to yourself that you can achieve something, and then gradually go and get better. Like what we go to study things, we work in a job and we learn skills over a period of time, not instantly or tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. And
So,
and don't let people hold you back either,
yeah.
because there will be people who want to keep you safe, which is fine. Don't do that. You're going to get hurt.
Yeah.
Be
Words.
careful of those people who are trying to keep you down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about for practitioners, business owners, especially people who might be really looking to pivot their businesses right now with the circumstances of the world? What would your advice be in a little nutshell? Especially if they desire,
Regarding their business?
yeah, and desiring more for their practice, like they're not that happy with it. They know there's something more that they could do.
Mm. I think the bottom line is if you're not that happy, figure out why you're not that happy. See, I'm so practical. It's literally not that hard. Why are you not happy? What's getting in the way? What do you need to know or do or learn, or who do you need to associate with or buy, or what do you need to change? There, as the saying goes, success leaves clues. Well, the opposite leaves clues too. So looking at it without emotion, just very matter of fact. Is it the people you don't like? Is it the facility you don't like? Is it the hours you don't like? My book, Design Your Dream Practice, is all about what do you dream? What do you want? Make it happen. Like, why not? See, again, anything is possible.
Oh, I agree with you totally.
Yeah, you just gotta. So in my book, there's 3 sections. You have to define it first. What do you want? What will make you happy? What will you like? You wake up in the morning and you're like, I love this. This is cool. So define it, then design it, and then deliver. Make it, go do it.
Yeah.
So if you're not happy, figure out why.
Yeah. And that you can have the practice that you desire.
Yes. Now, granted, when my kids were little, sure, I could not be working till midnight, nor did I want to. But, I mean, there are variables and life does define some of it. But there's also a hell of a lot of things that people can do to improve their situation. And that's what we need to look at. And I'm all about putting family first now. Again, when I started, my business was before my family. And then I realized, well, that's no good. So I flipped it. And now I'm, was able to hang out with my kids and wake up late and get to my gym class and do stuff I want to do while my business works around my lifestyle. And that makes a huge difference in people's quality of life as well, when they can make that transition.
Mm. So again, the two different branches, and I guess if people want to work with you or your team physically, in person or online, where can those people find you?
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. So people who want pain relief or therapy or some sort of physical changes can reach us at diamondwellness.com. And clinicians, business owners can find me at irenediamond.com.
Excellent. And do you have anything else that you would love to share with us before we close up?
I guess, bottom line, life is short. So if you find that you're struggling through your day-to-day, or you're not happy in your career, or you're not physically happy, really look at what's possible and don't think, oh, this is as good as it's going to get. As the movie Thelma and Louise in the movie, you get what you settle for. And it's true. And too often I think people settle. The pandemic luckily has caused a totally different perspective for a lot of people, which is good. It's been a wake-up call.
Mm.
And so, not thinking, oh, well, I have to go back to how it was. No, now is a perfect opportunity to create what you want.
Absolutely. Well, I love your mindset, and thank you for joining me today, Irene. It's been a pleasure having you on the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.